One simple mistake during an ordinary night changed everything. Ethan Cole never wanted to be part of a war between worlds. He was just a quiet technician fixing broken signals in the desert until one wrong command awakened an ancient alien bond that tied his life to Kalira, a legendary fox warrior from another galaxy. What began as an accident became an unbreakable connection, pulling two strangers from different worlds into danger. Loyalty and a destiny neither of them chose, but both would fight to protect. This is the story of how one human mistake created a bond stronger than fate, and how two lives, once ordinary and distant, became the beginning of something the universe had never seen before. Please do subscribe. Ethan Cole never believed in fate. He believed in cables, circuits, signal strength, and long coffee-filled nights at the relay station outside of Carson City, Nevada. At 27, his life was quiet, predictable, and mostly invisible. He fixed broken transmitters, monitored satellite feeds, and sent reports no one ever read. That was his world. He was fine with it. At least, he thought he was. On the night everything changed, a desert storm rolled across the sky. Thunder shook the metal tower. Rain cut sideways. The station lost signal from 3 satellites at once, something that almost never happened. Ethan grabbed his jacket, his tools, and drove through the dark. Cursing the weather and the ancient equipment the company refused to replace. When he climbed the tower platform, the wind nearly pushed him off. He clipped himself to the railing and began checking the damaged relay dish. The system log on his tablet flickered. Lines of code he had never seen before appeared and vanished. Then the receiver spiked at first. Thought it was interference. Then he heard it. Not a sound exactly, but a pressure in his head, like a voice without words. The monitor filled with symbols not from any known language. The signal wasn't coming from any satellite on the company's map. It was coming from somewhere far beyond. Ethan should have shut it down and reported it instead. Curiosity pulled him forward. He routed the signal through a backup processor and tried to stabilize it. His hands moved automatically, years of training taking over. The storm raged around him, but his focus narrowed to the screen. The strange symbols formed a pattern. The pressure in his mind deepened. His heart began to race. Without knowing why, Ethan pressed one final command key. The tower lights flashed, the wind went silent, and the world seemed to hold its breath, far beyond Earth. Across distances no human instrument could measure. The ancient warship Virex Prime drifted in the black between stars. Inside its command chamber, alarms echoed as its energy core failed. Its crew lay wounded. Systems collapsed one by one. At the center of the chamber stood Kalira. She was tall, armored, her form powerful and sharp, with the silver fur and fox-like features of her people. Her eyes burned amber in the dark. She had commanded armies. She had survived battles that destroyed worlds. But now, even she could not stop the ship's death. The last hope was the Bond Protocol, a sacred system used only by elite warriors. When survival depended on forming an unbreakable combat partnership, it searched the universe for a compatible life force. Once activated, it could never be undone. Kalira activated it with a steady hand, expecting the protocol to fail. There were no allies nearby, no warriors close enough. No chance. The protocol locked onto a signal dot from Earth. In Nevada, in an instant, energy surged through the chamber. Symbols burned across Kalira's armor. The mark of the bond flared on her chest. She gasped. The ship. Stabilized. Power returned. The protocol had succeeded. Somewhere in the universe. Her partner existed. Back on the tower, Ethan collapsed to his knees. The air around him hummed. A strange symbol burned across his forearm, glowing then fading into his skin like a scar. The storm returned all at once. Rain soaked him, the signal vanished. The equipment returned to normal. The night looked the same, but Ethan was not the same. He drove home in silence, shaking. Unable to explain what had happened, the mark on his arm pulsed faintly warm beneath his skin. He tried to wash it off. It didn't move. He didn't sleep. The next morning, he felt different, sharper. His senses seemed stronger. Sounds clearer, colors brighter. He knew when his phone would ring before it did. He flinched seconds before a car nearly hit him crossing the street. And sometimes, for no reason, his chest tightened with emotions that were not his own urgency. Fear, focus, determination across the galaxy. Kalira felt the same strange connection. She could sense her partner's confusion, his fear, his presence. Weak but real. A mind not trained for war, yet alive with stubborn courage. Her ship limped toward Earth. The bond could not be ignored by nightfall. Governments on Earth detected an unknown object entering the atmosphere. Radar stations glitched. Satellites failed. Military alerts spread in silence. Ethan stood on his apartment balcony, staring at the stars, his mark burning. He had made one small mistake on a stormy night, and the universe had answered. Ethan barely slept that night. Every time he closed his eyes, strange images filled his mind, flashes of metal halls, distant stars, and a presence he could feel but could not see. It was not a dream. It felt like someone standing just beyond a wall, breathing the same air. When the sun rose, his arm still burned where the symbol had appeared. The mark looked like it had always been part of him, smooth and silver against his skin. He pulled on a long sleeve and went to work, hoping the routine would help him feel normal. It didn't. At the relay station, systems behaved oddly. Signals arrived before they were sent. Data glitched in ways that made no sense. Ethan found himself fixing problems before they appeared. His supervisor noticed his distraction, but Ethan couldn't explain the feeling in his chest, a pull. Like a tide by late afternoon, the pull became stronger, and then he heard it. Not a voice, but a thought that wasn't his. He is close. Ethan dropped his tools. He rushed outside, heart pounding, and looked toward the desert horizon. The sky shimmered like heat rising from sand, even though the air was cool. Something invisible moved above the hills, bending the light around it. At the same moment, Kalira's ship broke through the clouds. It did not roar or burn. It slipped into the atmosphere like a shadow, its hull shifting colors to match the sky. Kalira stood at the viewing platform, her amber eyes fixed on the small blue world below. Through the bond, she felt Ethan's shock, his fear, his overwhelming curiosity. Her heart steadied. She had found him. The ship descended into a canyon miles from the city. Kalira's team prepared for ground contact, but she ordered them to remain behind. This first meeting belonged to her alone. Ethan drove without knowing why. His hands followed the road as if guided by something inside him. When his car finally stopped, he stood at the edge of the canyon, its desert wind brushing his face. The air shimmered again. A figure appeared, tall, armored, silver fur, catching the sun. Eyes like burning gold, Ethan stumbled backward. Kalira studied him, human, fragile, untrained, yet the bond glowed between them. Strong and undeniable. "You are my partner," she said. Her voice clear and calm. Ethan shook his head. "I don't even know who you are." She stepped closer. The bond tightened, sending a rush of energy through both of them. Ethan gasped. Kalira's ears twitched. "You activated the protocol," she said. "You bound us." "I just fixed a machine," Ethan whispered. Kalira touched the symbol on his arm, then her own armor. The same mark shone faintly on both of them. "The bond is older than your world," she said. "It cannot be undone." Before Ethan could respond, the sound of engines cut the air. Black vehicles raced toward the canyon. Government agents poured out, weapons raised, shouting orders. Kalira moved in a blur. She disarmed them with speed that left Ethan staring. No one was seriously hurt, but every weapon lay useless in the sand. "Come," she said. "They will not stop." Ethan hesitated only a second before following her. They fled into the desert as helicopters circled overhead. Kalira guided him through narrow canyons, her movements precise, her senses sharp. Ethan ran harder than he ever had, yet somehow never fell behind. The bond carried him. By night they reached an abandoned structure hidden among the rocks. Kellyra activated a small device that cloaked the area from detection. Silence fell. Ethan finally found his voice. "What do you want from me?" Kellyra looked at him, and for the first time uncertainty crossed her fierce expression. "I want you alive," she said. "Because if you die, so do I." He stared at her. "That bond you started connects our life force, our minds, our instincts. We will grow stronger together, or we will fall together." Ethan sank to the ground, the weight of her words crushing him, across the stars. The enemy known as the Dravok detected the bond's energy signature. They changed course toward Earth, and the hunt began. The desert hideout did not feel safe for long. Before sunrise, Ethan woke with a sharp pain in his chest. Not his pain, hers. He gasped and sat up, heart racing. Outside, Kellyra stood still, eyes focused on the distant sky. "They are coming," she said. Ethan did not need to ask who. They left before the sun rose. Traveling through remote roads and abandoned towns, Kellyra moved with careful speed, always scanning the horizon. Through the bond, Ethan felt her constant alertness. It changed him. He stopped thinking like someone who waited for danger. He began preparing for it. They found shelter in a mountain town, long forgotten by time. Empty buildings, broken signs, dust everywhere. For the first time, they were alone, without running. Ethan finally asked the question that had burned in him. "Why me?" Kellyra took a long moment before answering. "The bond searches for balance, strength, and adaptability. Warrior and mind. You were chosen. I'm just a technician. You're more," she said. The bond does not lie. Over the next days, Kellyra trained him, not as a soldier, but as a survivor. She taught him how to listen to the land, how to move quietly, how to use his surroundings. Through the bond, her knowledge flowed into him in flashes. His body learned faster than his mind could understand. Sometimes their thoughts brushed together. He would feel her respect when he succeeded, her concern when he struggled, and she felt his determination, his fear, his growing trust. At night they talked, about her world of silver forests and endless skies, about a small apartment and late-night coffee and music that helped him sleep. He realized she was not just a warrior. She was someone who had carried responsibilities since childhood, someone who had lost people she loved, someone who was afraid of failing again. The enemy drew closer. The Dravok scouts arrived in the nearby valley, dark shapes moving with purpose. Their presence made the bond burn like fire. Kellyra's entire body they were surrounded. When the attack came, it came fast. Energy blasts shattered stone. The air shook. Kellyra moved like a storm, defending, striking, guiding Ethan to cover. Ethan's fear threatened to freeze him, but the bond held him steady. He reacted before thinking, ducking, running, helping her as best he could. They escaped, barely. Afterward, they collapsed inside a broken building, breathing hard. Ethan's hands shook. Kellyra knelt beside him. "You fought," she said. "You did not run. I almost did, but you didn't." Something changed between them then. The bond no longer felt forced. It felt chosen. That night, Ethan realized something else. He was no longer just trying to survive. He was fighting for her, and she was fighting for him. The Dravok would not stop, neither would they. The next days passed in constant motion. Kellyra and Ethan traveled through forests, over mountains, and across empty highways where no one asked questions. The world around them felt normal. People shopping, cars passing, music playing from open windows, yet everything inside them was changing. The bond was growing stronger. Ethan could now sense Kellyra's emotions clearly. When she was calm, his breathing slowed. When she was alert, his body tensed without him meaning to. He began to understand her without words. Sometimes he'd even answered questions she had not spoken. Kellyra felt his growth with quiet amazement. He was no longer the confused human she had first found in the canyon. He was adapting, learning, becoming something new. They hid in an old train station one night, rain tapping softly on the broken roof. Ethan cleaned a cut on Kalira's arm. Their hands touched. The bond flared warm and steady. Not painful anymore, but comforting. "You are changing," she said. "So are you," he replied. She nodded. "I was trained never to trust the bond. It is duty, not feeling. But with you, it is different." Before Ethan could answer, the bond screamed, "Danger!" They barely escaped the station before the Dravik forces closed in. Kalira led them into a nearby town, losing them through narrow streets and crowds. They hid inside an abandoned factory where the walls were thick enough to block scans. That night, Kalira told Ethan the truth of her people's law. A bonded partner must return with the warrior to face the council. The council would test him. If he failed, the bond would be broken and both partners would die. Ethan stared at the floor. "So even if we survive this, there's another battle waiting." He swallowed. "Would you let them do that to me?" Kalira's eyes glowed softly in the dark. "No. At dawn, the Dravik found them. The fight was unlike anything before. Explosions shook the ground. The air burned. Kalira was forced to shield Ethan while holding back wave after wave of attackers. He fought beside her now, not with her weapons, but with everything he had learned: speed, awareness, courage, still. The enemy was too many. A Dravik commander captured Ethan. Kalira felt the bonds snap in pain as he was taken. She roared and fought through the enemy lines, but by the time she reached the clearing, he was gone. The Dravik contacted her that night. They demanded her surrender and the location of her people's hidden world in exchange for Ethan's life. Kalira had never betrayed her people, but she had never been bonded like this. She stood alone in the dark, torn between two futures. The bond pulsed with Ethan's fear, but also his steady hope. He was not begging her to choose him. He trusted her. That broke her. Kalira made her choice. She tracked the Dravik ship, attacked with everything she had, and rescued Ethan in a battle that destroyed half their force. She did not give them her people's location. She did not surrender. She chose him. After the escape, they sat beneath the open sky, exhausted and shaken. Kalira finally spoke. "I am now a traitor to my command." Ethan looked at her. "Because of me?" She shook her head. "Because of us." The bond no longer felt like fate. It felt like loyalty. The sky above the desert was wide and quiet when everything finally slowed down. Ethan and Kalira walked for a long time before stopping on a ridge where the land dropped away into endless sand. The wind moved gently now. No engines, no alarms, no danger in the air. Just silence and breathing and the steady warmth of the bond between them. Ethan felt different inside. Not just tired, changed. The world he had known seemed far away, like a memory from another life. He thought about his apartment, his job, the relay station, the simple plans he once had. None of it fit anymore. Kalira stood beside him, her silver fur catching the sun. She looked toward the sky, then back at him. "My people will come for me," she said. "For both of us," Ethan nodded. He already knew. The bond had shown him pieces of her future, just as she had felt pieces of his past. Two lives that could never return to what they were. "What happens when they find us?" he asked. "They will demand we return," she said. "They will demand you face the council. And if I fail," she held his gaze, "you will not face them alone." They moved from the desert into the mountains, following quiet paths away from cities and sensors. Days passed, then weeks. The Dravik no longer chased them, but the danger never truly left. Kalira trained Ethan harder than before. His body grew stronger, his mind sharper, his instincts quicker. Sometimes he caught his reflection in water or glass and barely recognized himself. His eyes held a steady calm he had never known. One night, the stars above them shifted. Kalira felt it first. Her people's ships had entered the system. They did not hide. A Varric's vessel descended into the high valley where they waited. Lights spilled across the ground as the ramp lowered. Warriors stood in silent formation. At their center waited the council leader, tall and powerful, his gaze fixed on Ethan. Kalira stepped forward. The bond is real. The choice is mine. The council leader studied Ethan carefully. This human is untested. Then test him, Kalira replied. The trials were not battles of strength, but of spirit. Ethan faced fear, doubt, and loss within his own mind as the bond was examined. He felt Kalira beside him through every moment. Her trust gave him courage. His determination gave her strength. When the council withdrew, the valley held its breath. The leader returned and bowed his head. The bond stands. Ethan released a breath he didn't know he was holding. Kalira's eyes shone. The council offered Ethan a choice: return to Earth, the bond sealed forever, or leave his world behind and walk the path between two civilizations as Kalira's true partner. Ethan looked at the stars. He thought about the man he used to be. Then he took Kalira's hand. I choose us. The bond flared bright and steady. No longer a mistake, no longer an accident, but a promise. As their ship rose into the sky, Ethan felt no fear, only purpose. One mistake had bound them together. Choice had made them unstoppable, and their story had only just begun.